What's up, everybody? My name is Paul Denuzio, PLD, or Paulie D.
And I'm the one with the weird European accent. I'm Richard Derek Jarvie, and together we're Class Action. What is Class Action, Paul?
Class Action is our show here on the Action Industries YouTube channel, home of Ben Bateman and Andrew Guy. And we take a look at films. Any film. It could be any film, new film, old film, whatever it is, we're going to discuss it. We're going to give our thoughts. First, not a deep dive, but definitely an overview. And then we will go from there and use that. Inspired by that film review, we'll present what we call our Class Action Brief of the Week.
That sounds so good. The Class Action Brief of the Week is where we take two opposing viewpoints, and with the help of 5 categories, we decide which is the winner.
Right. Now, those of you, it could be a movie, it could be franchises, it could be actors, it could be really anything we put our mind to it. But where are we again? Like I mentioned, we're on Action Industries, and Ben Bateman and Andrew Guy, two guys giving us so much out of our lives. That's why we're together, is how we found each other. They made so many different things, so much different content. They are on the Action Guys, Action Reviews, the Movie Trivia Schmodown, and of course, their baby, the one that we really came together on, Action Movie Anatomy, their show on the Popcorn Talk Network. We're well over 200 episodes now, and we're going strong. And speaking of that show this week, what did they cover this week on Action Movie Anatomy?
Oh, it was a good one. It was Ryan Johnson's Knives Out that you haven't gotten the chance to see yet.
Which makes me mad, 'cause I actually had to skip AMA this week. The first time I've skipped AMA in a long time. Shame. I even tried to get in the chat a little bit just to check, but I didn't want to spoil
Oh, you were there?
But I did get a few good facial expressions there. While
I was done. Actually, Garth McMurray came in the chat as well, and he was like, "I haven't seen the movie. I don't care about spoilers. I'm still going to see the movie." Me and James were like, "Leave! You have to leave. This movie is all about the twists. You cannot spoil it, or you're spoiled the movie." So,
right. Hopefully this week I get to see her at the end of next. I don't know. Hopefully soon.
You'll love it. But yeah, the show was very good. The thesis there were some hot takes. There were some strong thesis in there. So definitely check them out. They're posted one of them on the Action Industries Instagram already.
Okay.
But definitely check out the episode. It was a lot of fun. Great fist bumps. The cast was just crazy, and they did some funny impersonations. And the recast. The recast was my favorite part. Me and James Spence, we took over the live chat. We just slammed all kinds of different casts in there. So
I love recasts. That's actually one of my favorite recasts. Was my favorite AMA tropes. They stopped doing it for a while. They kind of bring it back once in a while. I remember when I called in for The Crow, I made sure they brought it back because that was one thing I really wanted to do. So now I'm even more interested. So
the recast was awesome. But what do we have on AMA next week? Tell us, Paul.
Next week, near and dear to my heart. Now, this is a very special AMA next week. They're going to cover, as they're leading into the episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. We're going to start our journey down that path, and the boys are going to cover Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Now, what's extra special about this? Well, I'm glad you asked. This week is also the Spectacular for the Movie Trivia Schmodown. Now, if you don't know what the Movie Trivia Schmodown is, it has its own page, the Schmodown Entertainment Network. It's a movie trivia contest that adds in professional wrestling's storylines, heels, faces, everything else. And Team Action took this league by storm, and the Action Army is almost partially derived from that aspect of the Army as well. We have Action Movie Anatomy, but we also have the Movie Trivia Schmodown as two disparate things that come together to form the Action Army. And the Spectacular is their version of WrestleMania. It's like the Super Bowl. Biggest event that they'll ever do. They're going to do it live in person. They have 5 huge matches, and a bunch of the Army is going to go out to LA, storm LA, get a house, an Airbnb house, and then we're going to spend about 5 days there. So we go to Spectacular, and then
you fuckers.
And then on Monday, a few of us are going to guest in studio while Ben and Drew cover Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Now, like Episode 1 or not, I know the prequels are a little divisive. I love Star Wars. I don't care what it is, from 1 to 8, 9, Solo, Rogue One, Mandalorian, Clone Wars. So hearing them talk about Star Wars Episode 1 while getting to be in the studio for the first time is going to be a very, very extremely special day for me. I'm really looking forward to it. So very special pitch for this week
It
for
is
this
indeed.
guy. For this
It
guy.
is indeed. I can't wait to see y'all in there. So.
Yes. So we'll try to get as much footage as we can from there, and hopefully we'll be streaming from the Action House. That's a possibility. I'm not sure exactly. Probably Call to Action, our sister show, which is a review, which does reviews, reacts, and as an after show for the Schmodown aspect of it. So, but with that being said, we're going to go from a very excitable moment to a little bit more of a somber, respectful moment, because this week, late last week, Action Industries lost one of their own, Emma Dollface McAllister. She was a huge action fan, huge fan of Ben, Drew. She worked with us at Action Industries. And if you don't know what Action Industries is, it is the team that works with Ben and Drew on this channel, on their brand. We help with their social media. We help with their Patreon. We help with pretty much every aspect.
Doing content.
And we're now helping doing content, which would be, this is like the first of hopefully many of us we're doing. We have a couple other shows I know that are in the works to potentially give us more content. Emma was one of the best of us. If you ever saw our news content on Facebook or on Instagram, she was the one who did the graphics for that. She also was the one who did the snarky headlines. And God.
Oh man, yeah, we butted some heads there.
She always wanted to push the envelope a little bit further. I remember, like, especially you, Brett and Hannah, we'd kind of take our side and go, "Oh, is this too far? Is this too far?" And either way, we laughed our asses off at it. It definitely kept us engaged, kept us going. But that's a good thing. She always wanted us to keep pushing the envelope, make sure we didn't just settle into any kind of boring old. We don't want any boring industries. We want to be action industries, and she was definitely the action of that. She had some very difficult time medically. She's always had a difficult time. She was raising money for her for issues, and so it was kind of a shock still, but at the same time, it's just a sad day for us. I lost a friend, someone I really had a great time interacting with online. I never got to meet her in person, unfortunately, but one of the best of us, which leads us to what we are doing this week.
Yeah.
One of her greatest, she was one of the greatest fans of the Blade Runner franchise. So we had no idea what we were going to do this week, but when this happened, it seemed like such an easy choice for us. We both love Blade Runner as well. We both love Blade Runner 2049 as well.
And these are her first two favorite movies of all time. First is Blade Runner 82. Second is Blade Runner 2049.
Right, and she would talk about them. She loved them. There's no poop emoji here.
No. The poop emojis.
Which I'll give you the inside joke behind that is that every time, of course, Marvel being in the news all the time.
Yeah, that's right, the Marvel stuff.
She was not a fan of the MCU, and she always liked to do snarky as hell headlines whenever you had to tell any kind of Marvel story. So she would always begrudgingly do a Marvel story, but at the end of every time she posted, she would just put the poop emoji just to let us know that she hated this stuff. but anyway, in honor of Emma, we will not be covering Marvel this week in any way, shape, or form. That's the only way we will mention Marvel. Instead, we will do like I said, we're going to take on Blade Runner versus Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Now, how this works is we start usually with our film review. Now, this is a little bit different than usual because usually we have the review, which will lead into a bigger topic, which is it could be a franchise or actor. This week, we're actually taking just the two specific movies and going against each other in the brief. So we'll have a little bit of a, no pun intended, a briefer review of Blade Runner 2049 as the more recent film. And I'll just run right into it if that's okay. I will say that I love this movie. I loved Blade Runner growing up. I was never quite as big of I was never an obsessed person. Like, it's a cult classic and people obsess over this movie. I didn't quite ever get to that level when I was younger. I came to it a lot later on. But Blade Runner 2049 actually made me revisit the original. I think I like the original now much more than I ever did because of the second film. Directed by probably my favorite current director out there, Denis Villeneuve.
He's one of the best.
It's either him or Nolan are back and forth for me at this point. But this was one of the reasons why I fell in love with Denis Villeneuve as well. Beautiful film from start to finish. One of the more recent pure science fiction classics.
You hit it. You hit it right there. Pure. This is my thesis. This is the best pure sci-fi movie ever made.
Ever. That's impressive.
This is because this is Blade Runner is the purest sci-fi there is. That's why it's the best of all time.
I don't disagree. I can't disagree with that at all. It is not usually sci-fi could easily fall into the tropes of alien invasion or intergalactic war. Oh, that's the easy tropes.
A romance or
they do something else. They do something romance. This just seemed to be a science fiction tale set in at the time, Blade Runner was in the future. We're actually just now finally past where original Blade Runner was supposed to take place, November of 2019. But 2049 is now doing that again for the future. We're still looking ahead of the future. But it's such a great set. It's such a lived-in world, such a real. I don't want to say realistic seems so weird, but it's so vibrant and
yes. It's very. This is exactly. I have the same points that I want to hit. Is the world feels so real because you can tell almost all the sets are practical.
Right.
You can tell. You can like reach out. You can grab. The sets are huge, but you can tell they were constructed for this movie. You can tell that they actually constructed the miniature cities and the buildings. They're actually miniatures that they drove with their camera through the buildings like that.
Right.
This was actually a miniature city that was built for these tracking shots.
Absolutely, 110%. Even like I feel like when I walk into the dusty terrain, I almost like wanted to sneeze and cough because I felt like I was so
exactly
in there with it.
You can tell there was almost no green screen at all.
No. The performances are spot on. They are into this world. There's no mailing it in. Everyone was 110% committed to just creating this event and this experience. That's what the only way to put it, experience. I'm a little. I get very sad when I realize that there probably will not be another sequel at this point because it did not perform up to financial standards. It was the box office was too. The box office didn't quite. I think it made money, but when you counted marketing and everything else,
I don't understand how.
I don't either.
I don't like even if you haven't seen the original, you can still enjoy this as a pure sci-fi movie. Yes, you might need some insights, but you can pretty much enjoy it all the way still because all the themes about because Tyrell is just replaced by the Wallace Corp. The same ideas are there. The replicants are back a bit different, but the ideas are all there, more human than human.
And then I would actually say that too. Like Blade Runner 2049 to me was one of the best examples I've ever seen of something that could be in any way considered a soft reboot of an original, but yet still wholly original and taking on very new twists on the same concept in the same universe. That's why it's one of the best sequels of all time as well. It's not a rehash, but it's definitely telling some of the same themes, some of the same ideas, just expanding on them in different ways. Is that a way?
Yeah, this is a sci-fi movie in setting and in psychology. I feel like as well because you can tell the people they're like thinking differently. They're moving differently. It's not all about the techie and the setting. It's the mindset is also science fiction, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. I will also just close out my thoughts with that. Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford, and they Robin Wright, even Jared Leto, who is definitely touch or go with me. He's got some great acting moments in his career and some less stellar moments in my mind. But he was very, very impressive in this film. I think I loved almost everything I could think about this film. I could go on and on forever. But I mean, Ana de Armas. I mean, Mackenzie Davis. So they all just had so many. And Dave Bautista had one of his first. I mean, non a Guardians role that was really just a good, solid acting from a professional wrestler, which you don't get very often.
No, he's a really good actor. You can tell he's worked hard for his roles. And the interesting thing about Blade Runner 2049 is also that they had short movies come out before this, and they had a short movie about Dave Bautista's character as
Yes.
Sapper. I think his
Sapper.
name was.
Yep, Sapper. Yep.
And he actually has a very cool origin story before Gosling comes to him. And even because we're going to spoil the movie, spoilers, we didn't say that. Gosling goes, he kills Sapper. After that, we find out that Sapper actually let Gosling kill him.
Yes.
That's
yes.
like, and every, like the whole fight, when you're watching the second time, all of his sort of miniature, I don't know, emotions or something, they mean so much more.
Right. It's subtle. It's very subtle, but it's so well done.
It's all there.
And I will also add on so many things I want to add about this movie, but I don't want to go too far into it because we're going to do the brief. But one of the best parts about the film is it gives you this great solid red herring. The whole time, the whole part of the movie is about the child of a replicant. All of a sudden, that becomes a central thing. Like, holy shit, is the replicants their own race? They're an actual artificial race, but they possibly created a child, and that brings up so many philosophical arguments. Arguments, but the red herring is the way they lead you the audience around, that way Villeneuve perfectly leads the audience on, is you're made to believe that Ryan Gosling's character is the son of Harrison Ford's Deckard and Rachel from Blade Runner, from the original Blade Runner. And if that was the case, I think this film would have been so much lesser, because what makes it, because it wants you to believe that, and it's so, that would be the typical sci-fi.
Yeah, feel good. The feel good aspect. It would have been the feel good aspect of the movie.
But it would have been predictable and lesser. Even if partially you wanted almost as much as Ryan Gosling's Kay did, because you were like, make him special, make him get it. This is why we're following this character. And then curveball, it's not.
They take it away. It's so painful.
Broke my heart. Like when she's like, "Oh,
you thought it was you, right?" Did. And she's like, sort of, you did.
We all think that. We all thought that, or we all wanted it to be on. Oh, and one last thing I have to say: Ryan Gosling in this role, his stoic, completely. Almost blank face performance almost reminded me of my favorite scene in Darth Vader: Return of the Jedi, with a black mask. You still see so much emotion in that mask that it's so subtle in some ways, but it makes the one time of emotion even better when he has that screaming moment after meeting your daughter. And he breaks through.
Get out of my brain! Get out of my brain! Because Ryan Gosling, he's a very handsome man, but he's one of the best physical actors.
Right.
He doesn't need to use his charming smile or this or that. He can be totally stoic, like you said, totally physical, and not show any emotion. And when he does, it's so powerful. The way he yells there. And the other one, when he loses, when Joe loses joy, when love crushes the Emanator, he's just laying there. There's no emotion. You can just tell he doesn't show it anyway, but you can tell how crushing that was for him.
It's in his eyes. It's his eyes.
And the fact that Villeneuve, he made a machine loving a hologram.
Yes.
Feel like one of the realest love stories we've ever seen.
Which is so part of the more human than human. Villeneuve is brilliant. I can't wait for Dune. Can't wait for Dune, just to throw that out there.
Yes, hopefully Emma was a big fan of the Dune book as well. So when that movie comes out, I'll be watching it with her. Absolutely. She'll be with me.
Right. And I'll throw one more sidebar out there before we move on. I would love to see Villeneuve in Star Wars, just so you know. Throwing that out there as well.
I've heard that one before.
Every week we do a review. We throw in one special aspect of our show. And you know it by now if you've seen us a couple times. And if not, well, you're going to get to know it. Our favorite segment of the week. What would Ed Harris play?
Mm-hmm.
Ed Harris, favorite of the show. My favorite actor of all time. I got to meet him a couple of weeks ago. I fangirled. Oh, did I fangirl? I was like the whole time I barely could. My stomach dropped. I was like, he's right in front of me. I don't know what I say. So awesome. But either way, we're going to run a little short on time, so we will just get right into it. Do you have someone in mind for what Ed Harris played this week?
Mm-hmm. Sure do. I made up a role for him.
Oh, you know what? Let me interject. I
Yeah.
never actually explained that. What we do is we take Ed Harris, we put him into the movie in some fashion because Ed Harris makes every movie better. So we either write a role for him, or we put him into a role that exists into the movie. So with that being said, hit me, Richard.
Yeah. So I'll just jump right in. Ed Harris plays a colleague of Joe. He's another Blade Runner, but from the old days, from the Deckard days. But he's reprogrammed to be as ruthless as Joe is. But he isn't as capable because Joe's replicant he's a bit more evolved. You can tell him he's stronger. He's made better. He's made more obedient. And with his help, they go to track down Deckard. And instead of Joe going up against Deckard himself, we have Harris and Gosling going at him together. Joe gets incapacitated by Deckard, and we have an old man fist fight between old man Ford and old man Harris. And they during that fight, Deckard kills Harris's Blade Runner, and we have Joe wake up and he's tied down, and they have that conversation, and then they build a rapport. That is. That's what I'd do for him.
Wow.
I kill Harris.
No, that's perfectly fine. Ed Harris, the best season when he dies, his death in the Rock is phenomenal. I was going to say, I don't even want to say mine now. That's absolutely beautiful. I floated through a couple of concepts in my head, but I don't even want to say that. I'm going to go with yours. I'm going to say, Richard R. Jarvie, without even saying anything, you have won this week. That was something I would love to have seen.
I'll take it. I want to hear yours later, though.
I will tell you later off air, because right now we're going to get it. Actually, well, I'll throw it in there now, just a really brief. I will say the only concept I had in mind was that either I was going to have Ed Harris in the Robin Wright role as Joe's kind of in charge person, but I was going to have him more.
Because we don't have enough white males in roles,
which is one reason why I don't want to go that way. That's why I flew through that. I was like, I can't take away Robin because Robin Wright was amazing. So that was one thing. The one I settled on was that I was going to replace Dave Bautista's role. I was going to put him in the Sapper role as the old, similar in the old Grizzly.
Would have been perfect with
veteran at that point as well. We'd have had a fight between Ed Harris and Ryan Gosling that way, and that would have been phenomenal. But I was going to expand the character out and do something similar to yours, but maybe not as much. I was going to have Sapper live somehow, maybe live a little longer and come back somehow later on in the story to bring that back in. Maybe he's going to help protect me at the end. He would come back out of nowhere and help save save Kay from Love in some way, sacrificing himself. I didn't know I have it all worked out, but I'm glad we're going to go with you. That's it. We're going with you. Your story. He'll take it. So, well, let's do it then. Let's get into it as we're clipping through this episode really fast. We're going to get into our class action brief of the week. Now, this one we're going to talk about the movies, but go ahead.
This is where we pitch Blade Runner against Blade Runner 82 against Blade Runner 2049. I'm just going to say Blade Runner 82 because
makes sense. I get that. That's a good concept.
So I'm going to introduce the categories that we have lined up by which we decide which is the winner eventually.
That's right. We break down into 5 categories. We discuss these 5 categories. At the end, we will determine which has won our lawsuit, which has won the class action brief of the week. So why don't you go ahead with the first category then?
Yeah, I'll introduce them all, and then we'll start from the...
Fine. Let's do it.
So the first category is better lead. We have Ford versus Gosling here. Second category is better setting / atmosphere. So this is going to be a good one, I feel like. The next one is better score. We have Vangelis versus Hans Zimmer and Wallfish. The next one is better villains. That's a pretty open category. We can decide which villain we want to incorporate in that one.
Or both. We can do all.
Yeah, exactly. And for the last one is better rewatchability. So first off, we wanted to maybe do better story, but I think the story kind of fits into the rewatchability category quite well. So
I agree. So let's get right into it.
Better lead. Ford versus Gosling. They're very similar in ways because we kind of discussed I can't English again. Discussed. I don't want to say discussed Gosling and just his stoic sort of calmness, his minimalistic acting. But as I was watching Blade Runner 82, I felt like that's all Harris. That's who started it. Harrison Ford was this stoic character, and as like Ford has this rough ruggedness about him. Gosling is a little bit more smooth and suave, but both play off this silent type very well. But I am going to go. Okay, I'm not going to reveal yet. I feel like things unfold around Deckard as he goes through the story, but K's, in K's, but for K, he's more hands-on investigating and putting in the motions himself. So I feel like he goes through the story as of with Deckard, things happen to him, if that makes sense. I don't know. This is sort of the feeling that I got when I was watching the movie.
Proactive versus reactive. I get it.
That's it. So this is where the genius of Villeneuve comes into play, and why I'm giving it to K. So Gosling.
All right, Gosling. All right, Gosling. Okay, I would say it's hard. There's two different things you want to discuss when we're expanding this category. You come out, you say better lead Ford versus Gosling. Are we talking about the acting performances of Harrison Ford versus Ryan Gosling? Or are we talking about the characters of Deckard versus K? And also, I gotta say, part of that also has to do with supporting cast as well. How they react to the world around them. Harrison Ford is someone I love very much, but I will say, and I think Ben made this point the other day. I forget what movie he was talking about, but Harrison Ford doesn't have a lot of acting like range per se. It's a similar type of character. It's a very rugged. He's got, who he's going to be. He's going to be the gruff guy. He's going to be very stoic. Where's my family? That kind of person, and that works for him. He's somebody. It's very rare that it works, but it just works for him. Doesn't matter what kind of role it is you want to see Harrison Ford do a version of Harrison Ford. But he's so iconic that it still makes it amazing to watch him in that role. Ryan Gosling, on the other hand, is so much more someone I've had to come to along the way. At first, I almost dismissed him as just a pretty boy Hollywood type, to be honest with you. I did. But the more you watch him, the more in depth that you get with him, and you realize how not true that is. Partly is because of the movie, partly is because of Villeneuve, partly is exactly the proactive versus reactive way. You want to know more about what Kay is going through. Whereas Deckard, you see what he's going through and you react with him, but you're not. I think Kay takes you and drags you with him.
Yep.
And you want to find more.
I think the love story is also a big factor there.
That's what it is. I don't believe the love story. The funny thing is, I believe the love story between Deckard and Rachel more in 2049 than even I did in the original Blade Runner film. And that's actually an interesting point too, is that one aspect they have is Kay has Harrison Ford to back him. So having Harrison Ford in Blade Runner 2049 makes Kay an even better lead in a way. So as much as I hate to vote against Harrison Ford as Deckard, which is one of the most iconic sci-fi roles of all time, I almost want to lean towards Kay. But I'm going to pull a fast one here. I'm going to pull a fast one. Even though I was talking myself out of it, I'm going to just go with Harrison Ford as Deckard because I like
it.
I like Harrison Ford in Blade Runner 2049 that extends. It's almost, if I took Blade Runner versus Blade Runner 2049 just completely separate, I can't do it. I can't do it. I got to give Harrison Ford the edge because he has two movies, and that's not Kay's fault, but I can't knock Harrison Ford for being in both movies. So I'm going to go with Harrison Ford.
Sounds good. I like the fact that you went the other way.
Just barely, because I love Ryan Gosling.
It's one of the closest one for me as well, definitely. So that's 1-1.
That's right.
Next category, we have better setting atmosphere.
Better setting and atmosphere. Oh God, this is a very difficult one to do. Also, we have films that are so far apart: 1982, 2019. Worlds have completely changed in how we do things. Blade Runner 82, I have to give it all the credit in the world for, because you look back, it's still a film you can look at today and it's not dated really. I mean, it's not as expansive as 2049. You can't get quite the same sweeping visuals with the beautiful background. Like they do what they work with what they have. It's kind of like the original Star Wars trilogy in that kind of similar way. They had what they worked with, and they made it work so that you could watch it and not in any way be like, That looks bad now. That looks bad now.
I think they've also touched the movie up in the final cut.
That could be too.
It feels like the big Tyrell Corp buildings. I feel like they've touched it up a little bit, but not to the extent of that they feel like the Star Wars movies that were like digitally altered.
Yeah, no, they definitely tweaked. I mean, let's call a spade at one point. The fact is that Blade Runner has a bunch of debate. 82 has a bunch of different versions to watch. Because Ridley Scott definitely, who's another visionary director, one of my favorite directors, by the way. I should throw that out there as well. I mean, Alien. I mean, a lot of stuff that he's done is just phenomenal. Gladiator, exactly. But he, what was I saying about Ridley? The different film. He tweaked his films just like George Lucas in a way, but he made it. He wanted to make the director's cut. He made. I don't have this off the top of my head. My sci-fi fans are going to kill me now for not knowing this off the top of my head. But the one I watched the most is what's called the final cut.
The final cut, that one that came out in 2007.
Yes, and that's
takes the one out where he had complete artistic control over.
Right, which is the one that's best. And it takes out the awful Deckard monologue voiceover, which kills the movie a little bit for me. I think I saw it with his voiceover first. And Harrison Ford, the legend, I don't know how true the legend is that he did it so disinterestedly because he wanted to prove to the studio that it didn't work, and the studio just like said, "Yeah, we're going to use it anyway." Oh, great! I think he sounds bored almost when he does the voiceover, but the studio felt that it needed it to. But you don't need it. You don't need the visuals tell the story enough. But if you're going with setting atmosphere, I'm digressing completely now. But going with better setting an atmosphere, like we mentioned in our review of 2049, beautiful. It just envelops you into the case. Blade Runner, through no fault of its own, is just a victim a little bit of its time. I got to give it all the credit in the world for what it did at the time, but I have to give this one to 2049 because I had never seen. This is one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. Period. I'll put it right out there.
You're going 2049.
I'm going 2049.
Okay, so this is gonna be good. So I'm gonna start off with 82. It has this damn claustrophobic and smoky setting of the 80s era, and the sci-fi. I feel like the sci-fi feeling in this is pretty much unmatched in any movie that came out at that time.
Right.
Even though Villeneuve is a genius and he has his sets incredibly well made to fit the story, they are more open and wide, and they feel very airy, sort of like you feel like you have room in there. Although in 82 you feel claustrophobic, you feel trapped. The apartment that Deckard has, it feels like damp and smoky and sort of like uncomfortable.
Yep.
But I feel like this fits perfectly to the story.
I agree.
And you feel trapped in that world, and I'm giving it to 82 just because of that. Yep.
Oh, okay. 82. This was going to be more difficult than we thought. So, what's next up on our brief for the week then?
Next one is better score. So in this case, Vangelis versus Hans Zimmer and Wallfish. This was a tough one because Hans Zimmer is one of the best composers out there, and he captured the tone. I know you want to say John Williams. I said one of the best composers out there. And
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
He captured the tone of the original perfectly, but I feel like the original Vangelis score captures again this atmosphere and setting, this weird, quirky tone. There's like these just like tunes. It's not even music. It's just like sound, sort of. Yeah, it might be unfair towards Zimmer because they did have to copy some of the original and make it feel like the original one, but I think that the original sets the tone for this, for all the like the sci-fi movies after Blade Runner. I feel like sort of tried to copy this weird and like dystopian soundtrack that this started, like these screeches and these weird sounds. So I'd say Zimmer's score was more technically advanced for sure, but the smaller scale of the Vangelis score is what makes this world feel so real again. So I'm going 82.
Okay. You know, it's hard for me to argue against that for very similar reasons. I mean, 82's Blade Runner, that is very much of its time. Even though it's a futuristic setting, it's very much the synthetic score was very much in vogue in the 80s and the early 80s. But it did add such a don't know what the word is. I guess it said the believability to it. It sounded more like a character, more like instead of a score, it was actually a piece of the setting in a way. Hans Zimmer, who is probably my second favorite composer after John Williams, adds a lot. He is limited, he's limited because he has to make it fit the original. And he quotes the original, definitely expands on it in a lot of different ways. But I find myself going back and forth really quick for the same exact reason as you did. I almost want to say 2049 because I love Hans Zimmer so much, and I thought the fact that you give a composer like that a framework within which he has to work, and he succeeds in it, and it makes it sounds exactly like it's supposed to sound. Like I didn't once think they were disparate at all. They had the same exact tone and feel, and so which one do I go with? It's so difficult to say. So I was saying, you got to go with the Vangelis. Had the original. He's the original idea, man. But Hans Zimmer almost perfected it in a way. To me. All right, I'm going 2049. I just love Zimmer. I want to give Zimmer the credit in the order. I love Vangelis.
There we go.
Gotta say,
are we tied?
We're tied right now. I don't know what we're gonna do at this point. We're going.
Holy crap! So we're just gonna jump into the next one then. Better
villains. Oh, it's a tough one. Who's the villain? Who's not? I gotta say the best. You have the original has Roy Batty, who's one of the best sci-fi villains of all time. Rutger Hauer is phenomenal. You have Daryl Hannah in there as well. The whole crew replicants that Harrison Ford's character is set to track down and take care of. You also have the corporation head, which I wasn't.
Wallace, or do you mean Tyrell? Jared Leto.
No, I'm sorry, not Wallace, the original. I'm still talking about 82 right now.
Okay.
They had
Tyrell. That was Tyrell.
Tyrell right. Sometimes I do flip that in my head. Wallace is not extremely memorable, so I have to say that if you're going to focus on the villains of 82, it's got to be Roy Batty with a side helping of Daryl Hannah. Or if you put him up against 2049 villains, you have Jared Leto in, like I said before in my review, might be my favorite Jared Leto role, even though it's the subtle, it's a supporting role. It's not very huge.
The way he talks and goes down sort of feels very one note, but then
as a replicant,
down.
He almost feels like a robot himself. But he's a human, and it so works perfectly with the more human than human aspect of the philosophy in a way. Because Roy Batty is a replicant who is trying to be human. Niger Wallace is a character who is I'm sorry. Jared, is it Wallace or Tyrell?
Jared Leto is Wallace.
Wallace, yeah. Why I keep that in my head? Niger Wallace's character is a human, as we think, looking almost more less human than human. But I also throw in, they got to add the sidekicks, and you got Daryl Hannah on one side, and you got Love on this side, and Love is a badass.
Do you like Love?
I do. I think she's the Ryan Gosling.
I'm conflicted.
See, to me, she was the evil version of Ryan Gosling. Mostly stoic, but lets it out in small waves of emotion.
That's where my problem was. I didn't feel like it was small waves. I feel like she started off very cool and calculated, and she was getting her nails done, and she was just like fire, and they had this like the drone attack, and then at some point during the movie, she goes like, "Bad dog." And from that moment on, I was like, "Who are you? What is this? Which movie are you in?" It's sort of, she just flipped and turned into this cardboard villain who was just like. So I don't know, that felt wrong.
Okay, felt wrong. Right. I believed it more. I kind of felt it more of being unhinged. It kind of got to the point where she was almost losing something about her coolness, and more as it went along, it just became more and more unhinged. She was losing into her emotion again, going from robot into human, or not robot, but replicant into human. Like she let more of the emotions out that she's not supposed to have in a way. And that reminded me of Roy Batty. They start connecting their human. She went more towards the anger side of it, whereas Roy Batty's character felt more towards the despair side of it, so to speak. But
Roy Batty feels like the most human character of both movies.
I think Harrison Ford's Deckard feels a little more real in 2049, not in the original 82. In 2049, I love Harrison.
I agree.
Ford's. I love his acting more in that, to be honest. Too.
So who are you giving it to?
God, I think I got to give it to 82. I got to give it to Roy Batty.
This is all Roy Batty. This is he. I honestly feel like he might be the best part of 82.
Yeah, he might be.
82. Like
He might
Harrison
be.
Ford is awesome, but he's just.
His speech at the end, which we'll get
Mhm.
to.
We'll get to it.
I cry every time.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. But 2049 is no slouch. Definitely no slouch when it
No,
comes
no,
to
no, no, no. Wallace, I'm a big fan of how
Mhm.
Leto plays Wallace. So what's the score? We both went 82 on this one.
5-3.
5-3. So it's close. It's one of the closest ones we've had yet. Then that leads us to the final one. Better rewatchability. Which one would you rather put on if you have 2 hours to kill? Okay, the 49 is a bit longer, but do you want me to start?
I'll start. I'll let
Go
you
ahead.
know. It's your turn. I think it's your turn. So go ahead. You start.
I don't mind.
Go ahead.
Well, I feel like Blade Runner 2049 really stepped up in terms of story. The original had a very simplistic story to it, which works, and I love the movie for it. But 49 takes the original concept and it drives the story forward so painfully and ruthlessly, which is weird because when you're rewatching movies, you kind of want to feel good and maybe not feel so destroyed by whatever happens on screen. But the way Gosling's character gets beat down by everyone and how he gets discarded as he thinks he's the child, it hurts. And even though the runtime is almost 3 hours, in a weird way, maybe it's like, I don't know, torture porn or whatever, I kind of feel like 49 is more rewatchable for me. It's weird though. The movie's so much longer and more difficult to watch, but I'd rather watch 49 if I had to pick one.
I'm right there with you. I
Mhm.
love 2049 so much as far as it's again, 82 is much more of it's a classic in its own way, but it's more of a staccato feel when you watch it. It's kind of choppy to me. It kind of like I throw it in the background, but I got to really
Love it.
get in depth with it. 2049 is so enveloping. It's like a big blanket. You want to just
It is.
lose yourself in that world,
Mhm.
lose yourself in his journey. And you know you're going to cry. You know you're going to feel right at the base of your heart, but you can't help but just want to go downhill with it in a way. I'd put 2049 on any
Yeah,
day of the
and
week.
and in a way, you watch 49, you get the first Blade Runner feel because they even have throwback scenes. They
Right.
play the audio and they bring Rachel back at the end.
And again, like I said, I like Harrison Ford's arc better in 2049 than I even did
Mhm.
in the original because it felt like he was more invested in it in a way. And so I got to go 2049 as well, which
Mhm.
means we're
That
tied.
decides it.
We're tied.
Oh, are we?
It's 5-5. We've never had this
I
before.
think I think I think this is the perfect moment, and I'm gonna tell you how we're gonna decide this.
Okay.
Instead of well, at first, when we wanted to honor Emma, we wanted to maybe take a moment of silence or something like that. But in this case, I feel like we should show her favorite scene, moment, monologue in Blade Runner 82.
2.
And I feel like that moment is the best moment in both films, in which case I would give the victory to 82. And I watch the scene with you
You know what?
right now.
I
So,
will. My gut wants to say Blade Runner 2049 still because that's how much I love it. And I love Villeneuve better than I love Ridley Scott. I love almost everything about 2049 better than 82. But in honor of Emma as well, I think 82 is still holding up as the iconic sci-fi movie probably of all time.
mhm.
If not of all time, then definitely in the top 3. So I will not. I'll give the victory to 82 as well in the
And I
closest
wouldn't
of
just give it.
battles.
I wouldn't give it just because of her. I feel like this is the scene what decides it for me.
I don't disagree. I would argue it. I could argue and throw up the 2049 scene, the Ryan Gosling screaming pain of
Hmm.
emotion, pain. But I will digress, and I will give it to you at this point and say that since I can't decide, I will let you say that this
Hmm.
82 is a winner. So that's what we'll go with. We're going to hail in our day. Have a great week, everybody. We'll be back next week. We don't know what we're doing yet, and but I hope you come and tune in next week and watch us on Action Industries YouTube channel. Uh, that's Rich Derek Jarvie. I'm Paul Denuzio. Let's watch this as we go out. And for Emma, we love you. We miss you. And I don't have anything more to say than that except for court is adjourned and we salute you.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.